What's up, guys? I had some time to think about some things after playing the open beta of Street Fighter 6 over the past weekend, and as a fairly experienced Street Fighter player, I had a great time playing against some decent fighters, and I had an even better time stomping those who weren't so great, giving them perfect KOs and really just giving it to them just for fun, just to see if I can still hold up. And it was nice to see that I can still use the same tactics, techniques, and combinations, and it still holds up to this day. And while everything was great in terms of how the game is played, how the graphics were, how the presentation was, it was a great experience overall, but it's still a Street Fighter game at its very core. And I've really stopped playing, I guess you can say, semi-competitively at about the Street Fighter 4 era, and it was hard for me to unlearn the taboos of throwing, as we've learned in Street Fighter 2, where we've seen actual people get into real fights because of stuff like that. That was a thing back then, and to unlearn that and start moving into a more refined technique or a more modern technique, which includes the throwing and things of that sort, it was fine. I was able to assimilate and get better, but I had to become a different type of player because of it. Now, while it's great that the same gameplay allows me to stay current on these modern fighting games, or primarily the modern Street Fighter games, that also means there's not much more that the game can offer me. Now, I know the genre itself is trying to get more people to play fighting games, and of course Capcom wants to keep their very old school base of players in mind as they make these newer games. Sure, it's great that the game can be much more accessible to people, and it's great that they respect the older players like myself. So what they decided to do was to have two different control schemes. First being the modern means of playing, which is simplified controls to allow people to pick it up and play. And then there's the classic controls where people like me can enjoy the game still and not feel lost in a newer game. Now, there's a ton of opinions that are flying around because of it. The younger folks are telling us, get out with the old and get in with the new, do the modern scheme, and us more classic players are like, you guys don't know what it's like to learn and practice these motion controls for years, literally years, to master them. They have no idea how many quarters we pumped into those machines to have the opportunity to play. Now, this inherently causes a problem, right? It's going to create a rift between those types of players, and I honestly don't think Capcom had that intention, but that's the reality of it. You're gonna have your modern controllers and you're gonna have your classic controllers like myself. Now look, play how you want to play the game, right? I'm not the one who develops and designed these, and I understand the concept of accessibility, so to each his own. But personally though, I feel like the game is more watered down when you start using that kind of control scheme on a game like Street Fighter 6. Now, there are games that blend the two together very well, as a matter of fact. One comes to mind in Dragon Ball Z Fighters, where there's a simple combo system, but there's also motion commands to help expand the game itself in terms of what can be done, what kind of combos can you create, and it rewards that skill set. But the whole premise of Street Fighter itself is to understand the commands and utilize that for your fighting style. You'd have to master the motion controls, the block timing, the block location, countering at the right time, what overrides what, zoning, all these other things that are still part of Street Fighter 6 even with the modern controls. But honestly, oversimplifying the controls really dilutes that experience of especially what Street Fighter was back in the day. Now, on the other side of that coin, games like Smash Bros. Right? They have a simpler control scheme, but it has one of the deepest fighting systems in the known genre, really. And so much so that its prominence is in the pro gaming circuits. And that's amazing. But Street Fighter decided to do both. and it's not gonna satisfy everyone, myself included. Now, the overall scheme of things, Street Fighter 6 will probably be just another game that I get tempted to buy, and if I do make that jump, I'm probably gonna buy it on clearance, if I'm gonna be honest. I'll probably play it for a month or so, like really hard, and get into the mix of things, but I'll just put it down. It's not gonna offer me anymore. Although it does have some really cool features like creating your own fighter, having that open world to compete with other players, tournaments, all kinds of stuff, the core of the game remains the same, right? It's still the same controls, it's still the same mechanics, and that's not enough for me to buy that game. I'm more than happy staying stuck in my old ways and playing the older games in my emulators if that's the case. I have those games already. Why do I need something new and different that plays a little bit like the old stuff? Which is great. I've learned the countering systems and how to take that to the fight and have it play to my advantage, and really punish those who don't get that countering system just yet. I can tell who's the old school players versus the new school. Now, I'm all for having more people play the game and discover the joy that is the fighting game genre, but it's tough to kind of figure that out in a game like this, right? And sure, those different control styles exist, so a lot of newer players can pick it up and play, while the older ones will stick to the old ways, and it's fine. I'll be able to apply the two, but I really feel like the modern control system is a glorified version of button mashing. That's just the plain old truth, right? To me, at least. That's my truth, of course. But the fact of the matter is, those control schemes belong to very specific types of games, and they shouldn't really be blended together. Now, many of us who played these games, Street Fighter 2, 3, Alpha, Marvel vs. Capcom, we had such great games in the 90s and early 2000s, and we really don't game that much anymore. And of course, Capcom knows that. They know that us older folks don't game as much, so they need those new players. Now, if you ask me, let the kids play, right? Let them play. That's what it's for. That's what games are for them to enjoy. But I'll be that old man talking about how fighting games were back in my day, and how things were much more complicated, and it took a real amount of time to get disciplined and learn how to play the game your own way. Now, as much as I loved playing Street Fighter 6 over the weekend, it'll still probably be a pass for me. But tell me what you think, guys. Do you like the modern control schemes? Do you hate it? What are you even into fighting games? Whatever it is, put in the comments below. If you liked the video, please feel free to like and even subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it means a lot to me, and it helps the channel along the way. So until then, thanks for watching. If I see you in Street Fighter 6, I'd love to play against you. I love getting stomped by really, really skilled players, but it's also fun to stomp newbies as well. I just get to enjoy the game and even learn from these newer players when it's all said and done. You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next one.